Hey everybody, hope you're doing great today. This is Paul from This Way to the Garden. In this video, I'm going to talk about starting your plants indoors for your outdoor vegetable garden. So the main reason to start your plants indoors is because of the weather in your area. In my case, I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio. We still have chances of frost overnight. There's always that possibility of snow. So the plants don't fully go out. In our case, it's until that special date is Mother's Day. Usually after Mother's Day, the weather's warm enough, it's not going to get cold at night. And that way, when you put your plants in ground, there's less chance that they're going to die because of frost or because of a sudden snowstorm that takes everything out. Now, some plants can be started directly outside. That depends on the plants. You need to research particular plants, the fruits or vegetables that you're interested in, and what's their growing cycle, how fast do they grow. Because in some cases, you can just pop the seed directly into your garden bed, and they will grow from there, and they'll grow great. With other plants like tomatoes, peppers, and more, you need to start early because, like I said, you've got that cold weather. They don't do very well in cold. You start them from seed indoors, grow them up. Start too early, the problem becomes then is they're too big, and then you have to transplant them continuously to larger pots in order to make sure that they grow healthily. But if you start them at the right time, by the time you're ready to put them out, they're strong enough that once they've been hardened off, put outside, let to adjust over time, and then put in the ground in the soil, they're ready to grow and they'll take off running. So depending on where you live, everybody has a different growing season. There's different times of year, different weather patterns. So when you decide to plant your plants is going to vary from, say, when I decide to plant my plants. So for those of us in the US, one of the sites that I use is almanac.com. I'm going to show you the website here in a second. And that website basically allows you to punch in your zip code, and it'll give you the timelines of when you should start indoors, what you can start outdoors, directly seeding, and when should you transplant those indoor plants to the outside garden. So this is the almanac.com website. As you can see here, here's the 2023 vegetable planting calendar. All you need to do is punch in your zip code, hit the search button, and you can see here are the different vegetables and their suggested indoor start date as well as their transplant date. Or if you want to start seed directly outdoors, when should you start it outdoors? So certain plants you can start indoors if you want, or you can start them outdoors directly. Other plants, like I said, due to the life cycle, you need a little longer growing time for them. So you will need to start them indoors if those are the plants that you like in your garden. In my case, I particularly like tomatoes. I like peppers, hot peppers, bell peppers, different types of peppers. So I usually start those indoors in a growing tent I have in the basement. I've got another video where I talk about that, so feel free to check that out. And I will include a link to that video down in the comment section below. So we do like to grow cucumbers in our garden. So as you can see here, if I want to start cucumbers indoors, I'll need to start them March 26th through April 2nd. And the start them means starting from seed, getting your potting mix, getting your seeding mix, dropping that seed in there, watering it, making sure it grows. And then it's grown enough, and then you can transplant in the ground in your outdoor garden starting in the May time frame there as it's showing on this calendar over here. So a lot of different plants, they're best suggested to start indoors just so you get a good yield. Otherwise, if you do start them late, start them outdoors, the heat in your area, the weather in your area could prevent you from getting enough fruit from those plants. So as I mentioned earlier, I like tomatoes. We grow tomatoes in our garden that we use. So starting time frame for tomatoes is basically February 25th through March 7th. If you're going based on the moon calendar, if you're going based on frost dates, you need to start February 25th through March 11th. I usually go based on the frost dates, and then I would be putting them in ground sometime end of April, early May. For those of you interested in planting in fall, this does also have planting date for fall. Some gardeners do go through a second cycle of planting. Cooler weather plants, and this calendar will help you plan for planting in the fall. So now what happens in the case where you missed one of these dates? Let's take, for example, the fava beans over here, broad beans. You were supposed to start seed indoors by January 28th through February 11th. In my case here in Cincinnati, Ohio. What if I missed that date? You can start a little later. So if I wanted to start now, if I were going to do fava beans, I wanted to start now, I can start a little later, put them in my growing tent in the basement and hope for the best. But more likely what I would do is I would go look at a local nursery, plant nursery. There's a couple in and around the Cincinnati area. They grow these, and so just buy it from them, and then when the time comes, then you put it in ground. So depending on demand, depending on the quantity that your local nursery produces them in, I would start getting in touch with them now, find out their schedule, find out their cycle, when do they start. A lot of them have their plants out starting around these next couple of weeks, and they can sell out pretty quickly, especially after this recent COVID cycle we went through. A lot of people went back to the basics. They want to learn new hobbies. Gardening is one of those. So from what I've seen from our local nurseries, a lot of people are interested in that, and those plants sell out pretty quickly. So start chatting with your local farms, your local nurseries, whoever produces these plants, and then get them ahead of time. And you will need to work with them indoors, set up a place indoors where you can put them, make sure they get enough light, make sure they get enough water before they're ready to transplant outside. So as I noted earlier, some plants you can directly seed in your garden outside. Just look at the schedule for that, get your seed, get that ready, put it in the ground, and tend to it outside. I will do a video in the future that provides some suggestions on where to buy seeds. You can buy seeds from your local grocery stores. Usually they're in the garden section. You can also buy from nurseries. Sometimes they have seeds. There's also a lot of online sources that I use, but I will go through that in a later video. So hopefully that gave you some tips on how to get started with your garden for the upcoming growing season, and which plants do you need to start earlier, and which plants can you start directly in the garden. Feel free to leave in the comments below, what are your plans for your garden? Have you already started some seeding indoors? Which plants are those? What are your plans for any direct sow seeds in the garden outside? Drop those in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.